Okay, Frank, bro.
What's up, bro?
Infinite, bro.
Infinite Brahs.
That's it, man.
3 levels of understanding. First is intellectual. Second is an experience. Third is a realization. Do not confuse intellectual understanding with experience, and do not confuse experience with realization. Experience is like a glimpse. When you have a peak experience on meditation, that's an experience. Glimpse of enlightenment. You have an enlightenment experience, or an awakening experience, and all that congeal into a realization. And before that, you have intellectual understanding of it. Maybe you read about it or imagine what enlightenment feels like. You need to go through all 3 steps. A realization is after you have an experience, you make it into your default state. So 3 levels. And realization is permanent in my direct experience. And any time that you have a peak experience, you can lock it and make it become your default state. The moment of enlightenment, it feels like the whole universe is eating itself through and through, like a cosmic snake biting its own tail. Strange looping to infinity. Having a natty full realization of anatta is actually extremely rare. I've talked to maybe in real life less than 2. One of them is my girlfriend, and we went through the same process together. Lots of pain, lots of tears. After Kundalini explosion, where every one of my chakras spontaneously opened up, which led to stream entry, the first level of enlightenment, I thought that was 5 ml DMT trip. Natural. On my last awakening realization, I was like, this is beyond psychedelics, beyond all paths, beyond all method cycle states. All suffering comes from separation, and all sense of separation comes from perceiving that invisible line between self and others, inside and outside, and different objects in the world, as solid. So the entire spiritual path could be summed up as dissolving every single speck of solidity, not just within the individual body-mind, but the entire reality. And the most stubborn specks of solidity are in the center of your experience. If you can dissolve that center point, you move from duality to non-duality to non-locality. That's the whole point, is to dissolve the center. Like I talked about how before, like the character is in the head, and you keep getting smaller and smaller. And when the character gets smaller, the quote unquote awareness, whatever, it just expands more. But then, like at the end, there was still gonna be like a really tiny, like knot or like speck of solidity that's in here somewhere, and it's really hard to track it at the end. You would think that you're there, because like when the
it moves around.
It moves around in the sense that, well, of course it moves around because everything moves around, right?
I see.
So,
well, for me, it still feels more like it's solidified in one area.
In the beginning, or like in the mid path, it's still very solidified, just like here, right? But then at the end, that's why it's hard to track, because at the end you don't know where it is. Just that little like knot there somewhere that's moving around will keep you from seeing the full thing. And the difference between the full thing and 99% is like quantum.
Huge.
It's huge. It's actually really huge. Before I used to think that.
Would you say it's bigger than the path from 0 to the 99%?
Basically, there are 2 really big jumps. One from pre-stream entry to stream entry.
Yeah.
That's a big jump. That final jump was like, that moment was like fucking crazy, man. Like I couldn't believe what was happening. Like
how did it happen? What was happening? Were you meditating or?
It was like a accumulation of like a whole week of cycling up and down, like dark night and rising, passing, and then a succession, keep going. Like
how much were you meditating during that week?
Like I think 2 or 3 hours a day. But at that point, it was just like I
happens by itself.
Basically, I'm permanently headless now. And the thing that got me over the hump is realizing that whatever is tracking that last speck of the knot of perception, it's just more empty sensations occurring all on their own, and none of them is the self. Don't you want to see what is like beyond your mind? At first, you can catch like maybe one sensation every 5 to 10 seconds.
Like I realized I kind of
But then there's still a little speck in the center.
Because this is fucked up. This is so fucking crazy. Empty and full. It's just like, what the fuck? It's hologram, void on void, infinity on infinity, which means that there's nothing to say. This is, it's not an experience. It transcends experiences.
Okay, after stream entry, your awareness gets unhooked from,
Aha.
and then but it's like it's still like a bubble before the person is completely here. After stream entry, you just like it's a big ship, but that bubble is still kind of limited. And then the second path, third path is bigger and bigger, and then at third path, the bubble is almost gone. Then you can just go like kind of like infinite towards that direction. It's like you expand from the atom in the middle to infinite space, but I didn't close the loop because that speck was still blocking the way. So closing a circuit, so you go all the way and then back again, like a strange loop. So that's when you know you reached infinity. So it's like the figure 8 thing, and everything you look at is like shh. Every sensation is like shh, and the whole universe like shh. And you just like part of that, like shh. There is no bubble to awareness. A lot of very advanced practitioners, even monks or teachers, miss this point. It's an extreme subtle form of identification and attachment. Your true nature transcends awareness and space and time. There's no mirror, no filters, no lens of perception at all. There's not even a sense of merging. There's no condom between you and reality, perceiving and perceive. And awareness is only a thing that's not located anywhere, by the way. It only arises codependently through objects and sensations and vanishes a moment later. That's why having a cessation or nibbana, where you take your mind to the edge and then consciousness shuts down, is so important, because when consciousness is not aware of any objects, it completely vanishes with your entire universe. The highest meditative absorption is total unconsciousness. You're not going to attain true freedom unless you cling on to nothing, not even consciousness or Brahman. You got to escape the ultimate witness trap, or Christ consciousness, or Buddha nature, whatever you want to call it. Cosmic consciousness or unity consciousness, where you're connected to the whole universe. That's a good, quote-unquote, midway stage to be in. Because you have to have an experience of abiding in oneness to be able to even wake up out of that. At the ultimate level, there's no difference between a self with a small s and a big self, the Godhead, or a mosquito bite. They're just different configurations and intensities of sensations. All of that is you, but none of them is you simultaneously. Middle way, bro, middle way. Emptiness. That could be manifested in infinite number of ways into different forms. And again, emptiness and forms are identical. Be a shapeshifter, bro. Shapeshifter. Shift, change. You are free floating within this groundless ground of infinity. That's why you can't hold on to any ground, no ground of being. Each sensation is floating in the center of infinity, which means that nothing has a center. And every point that makes up each individual sensations are equally infinite. And every sensation is unfolding exactly where they are. Your mind, your awareness doesn't expand to be aware of it. It's aware of itself without a self. You can never get lost in thoughts anymore. You never have to stay present because there's nothing but present. It's complete stillness, even if your thoughts are in the exact same quote-unquote space as the sky. How can you empty the mind when thoughts are already, emotions are already, the body is already utterly and completely transient and empty, vibrating out of thin air, nanosecond by nanosecond by nanosecond. And again, you can take this realization
everywhere you go in the world. It's right here, inside, outside, it's all the same.
Yeah, so when that final thing happened, it was death, man. There's no one here, like absolutely no one. Because there's no center, if I close my eyes, or even when I can just open my eyes, the 360 thing just kind of comprehends itself, like all around, like inside, outside. It's kind of like omniscience almost. It's like every single sensation just knows itself directly. Before it was like, okay, if I can sum up the entire path, it could be like this. Before it was like the meditator here, pay attention to the breath. That's one sensation, and there's a delay. Meditator, breaths, object, subject. The breath first, okay, now body sensations, now thoughts, sight, sound, that's just noting, right? And then you keep noting faster and faster and faster. Over years and years of practice, there's gonna be a moment where everything just syncs up as one. That's like a reality syncs up to itself. The zero syncs up to zero. At that point, there's nowhere to go. You can't get any more infinite than infinite. Like enlightened masters always had like a date. It was like, okay, this is the day I got enlightened. And I was like, really? Is that really like an on-off switch? When I look out to the world, it doesn't feel like it's me looking out to the world. Like my eyes aren't looking anymore. It doesn't feel like I'm hearing through my ear. There's ultimately just one sense door, quote unquote God sense door, and it's just perceiving itself. This whole field is totally awake.
Sometimes just like day-to-day desires.
That switch, it really did feel like a lot of my desire just dropped instantly.
Are you still meditating? What are you doing?
I can just like sit there for hours and hours now. Like I just sit here, right here. I spend like 90% of my day here, right here. My meditation power is like quantum. Before when I meditate, I still be like, meditation, 3 hours a day. I gotta get this insight. I gotta get this peak experience. Now I have like zero goal in meditation. I'm just more inclined to sit nowadays, like, cause I'm just sit there and then like I get like absorbed into the Godhead, like samadhi. It's like feels better than like eating or like fabbing. The whole universe is meditating to itself. It's just being itself. There was no meditator in here at all. Before the final awakening, I was still meditating as a person. I was still a seeker before that point. Your whole entire meditation career is you trying to become a better meditator. There's a person that's trying to wake up. But after awakening, you realize that this person, actually, that's one of the epiphanies for a lot of people that got awakened, is that they realize there's no one here to get enlightened. This reality is always already enlightened. But again, don't confuse that with saying there's nothing to do. You have to exhaust the seeker. If you don't exhaust the seeker, you can only say this after the fact. When I talk about the lens of perception, I'm not just talking about the way you perceive the world, it's the whole body. That's why Vipassana, body scanning, was so powerful to me. And then after that, I started scanning, started Vipassanalizing the whole universe. Just clouds, smoke vibrating out of thin air, so is everything else. It feels like I'm an invisible person, actually, but people can see me. Every action that I take now, it feels like it's not me doing it. It just, everything 100% feels like flow state. There's no agency. To completely surrender and then just let the force of nature do its thing. And the way the character responds to an enlightenment is different for everybody. Like a lot of people think like awakening or enlightenment make people like lazy and calm, but that's total myth. Like I think awakening makes you more than what you already are, except you're not attached to your personality.
And one more question.
You can track your progress from the first sit all the way to awakening with this map. But again, the map is not the territory. All spiritual practices lead to the same place if taken all the way. After you get a succession, you have access to all 8 genres like that, like flipping through a TV channel. It's amazing. Your mind is perpetually reset, ejaculated into a different whole new reality. Each time you go through this entire stages of insight, you get one path. First time, stream entry. A lot of people, they think they have awakened because they're on the rising and passing phase of the map, which is Kundalini awakening or mystical experiences, psychedelics, or they go through equanimity and they feel super peaceful, one with everything. There's more to go. If you don't have a succession, you're gonna keep cycling back between arising and passing, getting spiritual high and then darkening out the soul over and over, maybe for the rest of your life.